Hi, and welcome to The Gamble. Written and narrated by Ash Crowley. Elder, what has the goddess commanded? One of my followers asked as I appeared from behind the ancient door. She once again spoke about a gift of life, I said grimly. Another follower of a goddess spoke. Does that mean we have to search the villages again? I nodded, looking at large patches of the followers of the goddess Rona. We always gathered in the outer walls of the temple, and only set foot inside during our yearly tradition. Where do we go this year? I asked the followers. Elder, we have some unfortunate news, a follower from within the Sea of People said. It seems that the population has decreased in the city of Monmouth. They only have a single entity worthy of a goddess's gift of life. They awaited my answer in silence, too scared to speak. As an archbishop, I held a large amount of authority. People feared and respected me. After all, I spoke for the goddess. Sadly, these positions of power have many who sought after them. Those who successfully become priests of the smaller villages often let it lead them astray. That's why we have yearly evaluations. All priests have to visit the goddess's temple. She judges her priests and even the heathens. She leads those who respect her and her teachings, and punishes those who defile them. She isn't just the goddess of justice, but also the goddess of life. I looked toward the sea, flowing within the exterior wall of a temple, lit by divine light and the interior shining with an odd metallic gleam. I'll have to commune with the goddess Rona once more. I am uncertain as to whether this gift of life would suffice. They bowed down in prayer and began lighting the room with their chants. I turned on my heels and awaited the divine music, which would allow me to enter the inner sanctums of the temple. The goddess Rona was always watching, especially within her domain. The soft sound rang throughout the small, metallic room, and upon the call of a goddess, I walked into her embrace. The room was small, cramped, and mostly wooden. The only metallic objects within this dusty cell were the metallic bars which served as the window into the cell. I walked up to the bars and hit them with my cup. Hey, Phillips! Let me out! I'm innocent, I tell you! Phillips, the marshal of the small city of Monmouth, looked at me, scoffed, and returned to his paper, his feet still relaxing on the ironwood table, placed in such a way as to differentiate its texture from those of a building. I'd seen Phillips more than once mistake where he put his well-worn chair, only to fall flat on his rump as his hands unavailingly sought for the non-existent chair. Come on, Phillips. You know me. I'm not a petty crook, I yelled in defiance. He peered at me with his only good eye, but soon after went back to his newspaper again. He might really be angry this time. Look, I told you before, I pleaded. I only visited the priest for the weekly confessions. I didn't steal anything. He laid his newspaper down and stood up from his desk. He gingerly felt around for his desk's edges and made his way to my cell. His green eye was seething in anger, his red mustache and bushy beard adding to his fiery gaze. I stared at him. Phillips, Have I ever told you that if you wore a plaid shirt, you'd look exactly like a lumberjack? He scoffed and responded in his distinctive, deep voice. Bloody hell, Price. I've told you before. I don't know what a bleeding plaid shirt is. I don't know what a lumberjack is either. I beamed. But I got you to talk to me at least. Fine. You got what you wanted. Now tell me exactly what the hell you were doing in the priest's quarters. I told you before, Phillips. Don't you trust an old drinking buddy? It's exactly because you're an old drinking buddy that I know a few points wouldn't get you to wander into a priest's room for a confession. He looked at me, his eyes more serious than the time he wandered into the pub after his wife passed from the plague the previous day. Tell me the truth, Price. What really happened that morning? I couldn't tell him the truth. Were I to, I'd be sure to hang the following day. I looked away in shame. You wouldn't believe me even if I told you, Phillips. He struck the metallic bars peering into my eyes. Try me. Phillips was a good friend of mine. I couldn't just afford to lie to him. He'd been the first person to accept me into this village. He'd also been the first person to become my friend in this trying time. We'd shared our troubles over many a pint. Perhaps he would believe me. It's been far too long in any case. I faced him, speaking slowly and deliberately. I thought I heard something familiar. You're telling me you heard something familiar in the priest's room? Yes, I could have sworn I heard something familiar from his room. It sounded like someone I knew from long ago. He looked at me, trying to determine whether he would believe my tall tale, or would believe me insane. A few moments passed before he spoke again. I want to believe you, but also don't want to. I'll settle on believing you. I know you're not one to lie. Thank you, Phillips, I exclaimed. You have no idea how much this means to me. We'll see what I can do. Maybe I can talk to the priest to see if he can drop the charges. You'll be here for a year otherwise, or you won't be risking me ass for you again. Apologies, gentlemen. That won't be happening, a light voice said, reverberating through the ironwood jail. We both turned to face the strangers appearing in the narrow hallway of the jail. The person leading them had long, golden locks, green eyes, and a thin face. His face was almost too skinny. He and his followers likely religiously fasted. Phillips fell to his knees, keeping his head down. Archbishop! The man spoke again, this time dusting off his golden attire as he had scraped the edge of Phillips's ironwood desk. We have come to take this man away. Sins against the goddess Ronas as priests don't go unpunished. Phillips pleaded in desperation. Surely that can't be the case, Archbishop. The Archbishop turned to his followers, each clothed in familiar blue robes, gestured to me, and turned back to Phillips. Sadly, that is the case, Marshal Phillips. We can't have anyone getting ideas now, can we? Only the goddess Rona can judge those who defile her priests. Then locked the door and dragged me outside. Phillips tried to protest the Archbishop's decision, but to no avail. Nothing would change their minds. They were fanatics with a reputation to uphold. They did much good in this world, but fanatics always end up breaking a few moral laws, here and there, for whatever reason. We found the gift of life, a young man in his 30s. The local priest called the guards after finding the man within his quarters, near the divine relic, capable of summoning the goddess for prayers. The man religiously refused any allegations of theft, but it didn't matter. We were hard pressed this year, and I would have used any reason to obtain him. The gift of life is vital to the goddess. She is one of the smaller goddesses, but she takes care of us. Her rule has ensured a prosperous population and safe environment. I looked at the man currently covered by only a robe. The followers of Rona's purified him for the ceremony.
What have you to say for yourself, gift of life?
I asked, as I always did. Archbishop, I am innocent until proven guilty, as the law states, he responded. What do you know of the goddess Rona's laws, drunkard? A new priest berated. He gave a hearty chuckle and turned to face the newcomer. Believe me, I know more than an upstart. Enough! I reprimanded.
Priest James, it is unnecessary to indulge the gift of life's taunts. Many learn about the goddess Rona. Only those who learn at the temple will ever have the full breadth of the law at their disposal.
He simmered down into his corner once more. The gift of life, however, seemed to chuckle in silence. He was different. He didn't fear the goddess, even after seeing the majesty of her temple. His perpetual smile perturbed me, but we needed to uphold the yearly tradition. I held out my hands, as if in an embrace, and addressed the crowd. Priests, we will begin the ceremony. Begin your chants. The goddess must hear our pleas. Elders, bring the gift of life. We moved towards the door of the inner sanctum and awaited the divine music. Shortly after, we arrived in a long, spacious hallway, stretching roughly a kilometer, with the occasional doors to temple rooms only meant for the goddess's eyes. Our footsteps reverberated in the dim, white light cast from above. I casually looked around, only to see the light dim, more than usual, here and there. Her power must be weakening. We arrived in a dark and spacious room, filled with her relics. The elders had grown used to the sight, but the outsiders seemed to break out in a soft laugh. One of the elders reprimanded him, but his laugh was still audible within the quiet recesses of the goddess's altar. I announced our presence to the goddess, bowing in reverence. "O great goddess Rona, we come with an offering of life. Please grant us your presence." The altar sprung awake as if to welcome the goddess herself. A quiet drone appeared from within the void, followed by dim lights flickering on all the relics she had gathered over the years. A blue flash lit up the majority of the metallic room, casting large shadows behind the two pillars on opposite ends of the altar. We heard her voice beckon us closer, and we adhered. She only appeared when we were at the foot of the altar. The goddess Rona loved blue, and her immaterial form was one constructed entirely of different shades of blue. Navy blue hair, ocean blue eyes, and baby blue skin. She had a female body, but none of the vital parts required by humanity, proving her above the base desires of humanity. We all knelt in front of the altar. "We have brought the gift of life," we all echoed. She sat down on an immaterial chair, gracing us with her presence and eyes. Her voice appeared out of thin air. "I cannot accept this offering, Lawrence." the elder gasped. As did I.
Why not, Goddess Rona?
She sighed, as if in defeat, and soon began laughing. Crew members of the SF Rona cannot be sacrificed for conversion to nuclear material. International space law prohibits this unit's use of crew members as nanomachines for continuing processes. I burst out laughing, drawing the ire and suspicion of the elderly priests gathered at the foot of the holodeck. It all felt too familiar. My recent memories of the town drunkard faded, and the old, partial, and hazy memories of a time long past reappeared with the help of the ship's technology. I always knew I was different. I knew things no one else did. The strange, ethereal memories would appear within my mind as vivid as the people in front of me, and would disappear just as quickly. "How are you, Rona?" I asked, looking up at the tall blue hologram. "It's been a long time, Captain Price." "Or would you prefer the nickname C. Harrison?" she said, smiling softly. "Whichever suits you. It's been too long. You've suffered the most, which is why I'm giving in to your desires at the moment." "Wait! What does this mean, Goddess Rona?" the Archbishop questioned frantically. I turned around to face the elder bishops, only to, understandably, find them in shock. "I think it'd be better for you to tell them, Rona. They wouldn't believe me," I shrugged. They eagerly awaited the words of their goddess, still kneeling at her holographic feet. "We started this as a gamble a few thousand years ago. C. Harrison is the captain of the SF Rona," she started. "This drunkard is a greater god?" the Archbishop interrupted. She shook her head. "Neither of us is a god. To you, it might seem that way. I'm the epitome of human technology, and so is the captain." The Archbishop wished to interrupt, but she continued. "Both the captain and the vessel are bound to each other with something my creator called an interesting use of quantum physics and simulated biology. He can live for 1,000 years, and so can I. According to international space law, Article 256, we may determine how best to help humanity establish themselves on a new planet, while actively terraforming it. We chose the role of her as the goddess, given that she would check all the boxes for it." The clergymen were in utter disbelief. Archbishop Lawrence mustered up his courage and asked, "Why?" I smiled. "I am a nano-human, a mixture of nanotechnology and quantum physics. She is an artificial intelligence tasked with ship management and terraforming the planet. We put our heads together to find, and gamble on, the most optimal route for human survival, setting it back to our Middle Ages, with a few advances here and there. Our plans did run amok, ever so slightly, but we have a solution for the future, which does include you all." I turned to face Rona and mumbled, "I must say, I didn't think that you'd lose the bet."